back in Perth. This is the Backchat Basketball Show. You can email us hello@backchatpodcast.com.au, or the best way to get in contact with us is on Instagram. As some of you have been, we've got some questions to get to. Backchat_basketball. We post some stuff there. I'm going to commit to posting more, Ben, because it's a bit sad.
You've got an excuse. You've been in Melbourne, jet setting around the country the past week.
Yes.
So we're back in Perth. You're back in Perth. I'm about to leave Perth. So
I know.
We'll have to sort this out.
Things are going to change a little bit with the basketball show. We are going to go. So last week, if you listened or watched, it was all remote. It was online.
Yes.
We will be going to move to that sort of more full-time because, you're going to be living in Melbourne and we're going to be Perth, and I'm not going to fly. Like, we don't have the budget to fly you in and fly you out.
Dirk's not in town every week, and
No.
I'm sorry to break it to you, but you can't look like an intellectual last week, because anyone that watched last week would have seen the wonderful library you had at your disposal over there in Melbourne.
Wasn't mine. It was a friend of mine who I'm not sure how many of those books he actually reads, but it is a nice backdrop to have for a podcast video. But yes, I was in Melbourne seeing Dirk. What a man. What a great guy. So it was a really good event. There was about 700 or 800 people there. Dirk sat on the stage with another guy, and he basically was interviewed. Not me.
Don't even know the name of the other guy. Don't care.
No, it was very good. I can't remember the guy's name, and it's okay because he doesn't listen to this, so he's not going to care. But he did a really good job. He talked about 2011 when they won the championship, told some stories. They played some highlights, and then one thing I remember was... it was just so good, and then someone asked me like, "Oh, what are some of the stories you told?" And I'm like, I can't remember. It's just one of those.
I've got to know though. Some of these events can be a bit, PR filtered.
Yes.
I went to Paddy Mills' speaking event late last year.
Yep.
And I love Paddy, but it was more like a promo event for his future political career, as opposed to an interesting basketball event.
So this was completely opposite.
Okay, that's good.
They in 2011 in Game 2 against the Heat, the Mavs were down by I think 15 with about 4 minutes left. And it looked like basically the Heat they smashed them in Game 1. They're probably going to smash them in Game 2. It's over, And they came back, crazy comeback. Dirk hit a layup at the end for the win with about 7 seconds left. And there's this great footage of Dirk just looking sort of shocked, and like everyone's going up to him, hitting him. They're like, "Dirk, you did it," and stuff. And he's sort of just like in sort of disbelief. And that's what I always thought that it was. But he told how, like, because it was just all such a, like, they were down by so much, and there was all this stuff happening. He after this the buzzer went, and Dwayne Wade missed that long range three. Dirk didn't even know if they had won or not. Like, he knew it was close, and he thought maybe it was like going to overtime, but everyone was coming up to him and celebrating, and he was just stunned. And it was just, he sort of talked about that over some footage. It was a great event.
So that was the classic game where Dwayne Wade was talking smack in front of the bench, right? I remember there being 6 or 7 minutes left, and Miami had this massive lead. Looked like the game was over,
right. He hit
and maybe
a three.
Series over. We'll go up 2-0.
Yep,
and then Dirk just went bananas.
He pulled like the Superman shirt opening in front of the Dallas bench, and that was a crazy game. That was a really crazy game. I remember watching that just in utter disbelief.
So did he talk about what it was like winning the finals and the feeling of actually like winning that Game 6 in Miami, and what actually happened the night after with Mark Cuban? Yeah,
so he said that there was definitely an older team, so the partying wasn't as crazy as you probably would have expected, but winning was just such an overwhelming feeling for him that, there's that famous footage of him running off the court as the buzzer goes, and he was telling them to the like NBA officials, not the referees, but like the operations people were like, "Dirk, you got to come back. You won Finals MVP." And he was like, "Give the trophy to someone else. I don't want it." Like, it was just this overwhelming thing, and he just sat in the locker room and cried by himself.
So is that what he did? Did he explain what actually happened in the change rooms for that 10-minute period?
He said that he got really teary. I think when in like Eurobasket or something, when Germany won something, and he was crying in front of everyone, and he's like, "I didn't want to do that again." So he's like, he just went into the locker room and sat and sat by himself and had some time and cried a bit, and then it was just not the normal thing you'd expect an athlete to do. So excellent event. The guys who put it on did a great job. So I'm glad I went, and quick in and out of Melbourne, 3 days. Yeah, I did fly over on business class.
I know you did say this. This is just really showing how much money is going through the Backchat studios these days.
It was like one of those things where you nominate an upgrade with points, and it happened to happen. And so I definitely don't need. On the flight back, I didn't have business class, but no one sat next to me, and I had probably more room in that instance.
I need your luck next time I fly. So is this the first time you've flown business class?
Yes.
And run us through, because I'm a virgin. I haven't got that experience yet in my life. You've got to tell me what it's like up the fronty end of the plane.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. So I sat on the plane because you go on so early because you're the first on. And I remember sitting down on the plane. I was quite comfortable, and I played a bit around with some of the buttons. And then I woke up. I don't remember taking off. I woke up to a lady going, "Would you like something to eat?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I had like some chicken pie. I think it was great, and a glass of wine. As soon as I finished it, I moved my tray off because, like, when you're sitting on it in economy, like, you have to wait until they clear your tray. Yeah. Like, sometimes you're sitting there for ages with this empty tray of food on your plate. On your lap. And so I basically just picked up my tray and moved it off to my side little area where it wasn't in my way, put my seat all the way back so I was lying flat, like I had a pillow, a blanket, I was lying flat, and I fell asleep, and I woke up to the captain going, "Oh, we're prepared for landing." It was that
See,
good.
that sounds like a foreign world to me. I can't comprehend what that would be like.
Yeah, and on the way back I started White Lotus Season 1 and could not stop watching it. So
you had, it sounds like the highlight of the trip was the plane right there.
Yeah, it was excellent. It was very good. But anyways, let's get to some basketball instead of my escapades. So Josh Giddey, we'll run through some Australians doing great things in the NBA. Josh Giddey, last 10 games, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Or maybe it's 8. 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Crazy good numbers for a guy only in his second year. And we always knew he was going to be good. And always looked in control, and playing for a bad team like OKC. He was obviously going to have a lot of the ball. But I don't know if I expected this. And his shooting percentage as well is... where is it? It was actually a good shooting percentage as well. So it wasn't like he's just firing up heaps of shots.
No, they're trending up. And it's funny, isn't it, that for the past 2 years, every radio interview or hit I've done, Josh Giddey is the first name they talk about because he's the young, sexy, like new Australian player.
52% field goal, by the way.
That's very good for him. And if he shoots that clip, he could be an all-star one day. And that's something that I never thought he could be. I thought he'd be a good player in the NBA, a Joe Ingles type that has a good role on a good team, but never a trendsetter, I suppose, and never a leading man.
Yes.
But he's been tremendous over the past month or so, and it's only 10 games. And again, OKC is improving, but they're not yet a playoff team. So I think we need a little bit of context there.
Yes.
But for him to be scoring 20 points a game, you were running the stats before we started recording, and his splits over the past month look like a Ben Simmons stat line when Ben was at his best. That 20 points per game, 8 and 8, filling up the stat sheet. And his passing is already elite, we know that, but he's complementing that to score the ball. And I saw an interview he did last week, and he was talking about how he's understanding that he's big, he's tall, he's strong, even in an NBA context, and how he's gaining confidence attacking the basket using his size and his strength to get fouls and draw contact. So it feels like, doesn't it, something has clicked in his mind in his second year, and he's so much more aggressive, and the results are starting to show.
He'll be scary, and OKC will be pretty scary. I think they start to, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander performing like he is, Josh Giddey, they get like another sort of
They're going to get Chet back next year.
Yeah, and then you add like a good veteran piece that's maybe like, I could help these young guys. They start to make the playoffs, and then they become potentially like a destination or somewhere that they're like, well, there's really good young talent. We could win with these
become
guys.
A good team. Even look at Sacramento this year. They've got 2 all-star caliber players, and they're a good team, not a great team. But the perennial teams in the West, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Warriors, are all sliding back to the pack. And the Kings are in 4th spot now. Yeah. They might even win that division.
Yep.
So OKC could easily do a similar thing next year. That if they get Chet back, or they haven't even had him yet, if they get Chet and he's actually a good quality rookie, which people think he will be, plus all the draft picks they have, plus Shai is a top 10 player in the league this year, plus Giddey, plus all their other rookies on contracts that are very cheap and very easy to build around.
Yes.
They can very quickly elevate in the standings and, you're right, become a playoff team. And for a team that's been down the bottom the last couple of years, and especially with Giddey, who, like we said, hasn't played an important NBA minute until the past month, we're starting to see him get experience with games that matter with a team that's pushing 500. And if they can keep winning games and be around the fringes of the play-in mix, that's going to be massive for the development this year, because it allows them to play real games and important games. When you look at someone like Houston, for example, that are playing meaningless games, you can't judge anything from that.
No.
And that's probably the biggest thing I take away from this OKC winning streak.
Yep.
the games matter. There's pressure on these guys now. There's going to be mistakes.
They actually want to win games. They're not just going out there trying to
and they can learn in environments that are conducive to learning with some pressure, which is good. And I think NBA teams forget that sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go from one Josh to another in Josh Green, who hasn't been playing for around 20 games.
Has it been that long? It's a quarter of the year.
I know. And he really started to find some form in Dallas and was providing he was an asset for them. Whereas in the past, he's been like, you run him at the end of games if you're down by a lot or up by a lot, and maybe he does a couple of flashy things because he's so athletic. But he's actually a contributing member of this Dallas Mavericks basketball team. There's a 3-man lineup when Josh Green, Luka, and Christian Wood are on the floor together, their average offensive score per 100 possessions is 140 points, so very good offensive rating. And defensively, only giving up 91.6, which is it's about a 50-point.
It's a big swing.
It's a big swing there. That is only limited possessions. I think it's like 115 possessions, but it shows that there is definitely something there. It's probably not that going to be 140 and then 90, but it does show that he can actually contribute to a team when their good players are on, and not just he's the best player out of all the bad players.
Yeah, and I think Josh Green has elevated to being a very good 3-and-D role player this year, and that sometimes is taken to be a bit of a condescending comment. But in NBA circles, that's great, because around Luka Doncic, you need those players.
Oh, he'll play for 10, 15 years if he's that.
He can get a contract after the year, and if he can get back to his form from the first 2 months of the season, perform like that, perform in the playoffs, you're talking a $100 million contract that's probably going to come his way. Mikal Bridges got that in Phoenix 2 years ago.
Yep.
And Josh can do a lot of what Bridges does in Phoenix. So that's one thing personally for Josh, and for Dallas, they need Josh Green back because, again, Luka is, we talk about this every week, having an outstanding season. We can slice and dice all the stats, but still the team's only 3 games above 500.
Yeah.
And they're in 5th spot, but that speaks more to what I said before about the West being average through the middle. So, again, Dallas need all the players they can get. And they need Josh Green back competing, because it's less about what is happening right here and right now. But as the season goes along, injuries hit. And I know Josh is coming back from one.
Yes.
But if Luka misses a game, this team has no chance of winning games.
They're like 2 and 10 when he doesn't score 30 points, and that includes games that he's not actually playing. Like it's bad.
It's insane. And I'm just looking at the fixture here. Dallas have 6 of their next 8 games at home before All-Star break.
Yes.
So Josh is coming back at the right time, because they need to bank some of these wins. They've got Atlanta, the Wizards, Detroit, New Orleans.
Yes.
They need to be winning those games.
That's right.
If they want to finish top 4, and to be fair, if Luka wants MVP, he needs to finish top 4. You
definitely need probably home court in the playoffs if you want to have an MVP season. And along with Josh Green, Dorian Finney-Smith is coming back. So you got 2 really good 3-and-D guys that, Josh is hitting more open shots, and so is Dorian. So good signs for the Mavs, especially with, like, you can't just have Luka scoring. You can't go 40, 20, and 20 every game.
No, it doesn't work.
It's outrageous, and they'll lose playoff games doing that.
We said this last week, I think, but it's reminding me more and more of LeBron 2008 in Cleveland, that the central player is that good that he can win MVPs. You'll win 50 games in the regular season, but you've got no chance of beating elite playoff sides. Yeah, well, to be frank, I don't think Dallas has any chance of getting to the finals personally this year.
Yeah,
because there's just not a second superstar, or even Jalen Brunson, not to rub salt into the wound.
Come on, man.
A second ball handler that can initiate offense and score at a good clip.
Yeah.
Dallas needs that. And no matter what happens this year, that's what they need to do this off-season. It might even involve trading our mate Josh Green to get that.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to go out and find a second banana to Luka.
They do. And I mean, at this point in time last season, I had no expectation that they're going to get to the Western Conference Finals, and they did. So who knows what will happen. Ben Simmons, let's keep going through some Australians. Ben Simmons, so his first chance tonight to perform without KD and Kyrie in the team. He scores 10 points, 4 of 10 shooting, 10 rebounds and 11 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks, 7 turnovers. Not great, but it is encouraging to see that he can contribute to the team. I don't actually know if they won that game.
They lost to the Spurs, which is a bit sad, isn't it?
Yeah, so look, if you're looking just on paper, you're like, oh, okay, triple-double. He's doing some things, and he's carrying a bit of more weight without KD and Kyrie, but, mate, you got to beat the Spurs.
I'm going to read out these numbers here. Tell me what you think this is.
Okay.
0, 4, 6, 7, 4, 2, 10, 4. That's Ben Simmons is scoring out point in his last 8 games before this morning.
Oh, boy.
So that reads like a...
I was like, turnovers? But that's points.
That reads like a phone number of someone you'd pick up in the club, 0467. So again, Ben scoring 10 points this morning. Okay, that's good. But someone has to score points without Durant and Irving there.
And it was only 10.
And it was only the Spurs who, to be frank, are one of the worst 4 teams in the league. So...
They actively are trying to lose.
They're trying to lose every game, and they rolled the Nets this morning. And for Brooklyn, I was going to say you've got a feel for Brooklyn fans, but let's be frank, there aren't many of them. But for the 4 fans that are out there for Brooklyn, it really speaks to how fickle this franchise is that before we recorded last week, Durant was, in my eyes, top 2 with MVP, then won 18 of 20 games. They were surging up the standings. Durant goes down, and they've lost their last 3 games. One was against Boston, admittedly, but you lose to OKC at home and San Antonio on the road. And... they go from sitting in second spot, looking like they've got an MVP, looking like they're going to cruise into a top 4 seed, to now they're on a road trip out west. They're probably going to lose some more games. They're going to be in 5th spot by the end of the week, I dare say.
KD's going to miss a lot of time.
He's going to miss until All-Star break. And again, I have enjoyed Ben Simmons' career more than most. I got to see him up close for a year. But if you're relying on him to be your leading scorer, you're not going to win many games in today's NBA because he's just lost his touch, and it's... sad to see, and hopefully he gets it back. That's why I don't like ripping on him too much. But yeah, he needs to step up and take more shots, because again, looking at his last... I'm going back to the start of December. He's had 1 game where he's taken more than 10 field goals. So it's in 2 months, only once he's taken more than 10 shots.
You end up playing 4v5 on offense when a guy's like, well, he's not going to shoot, so we don't even have to worry about getting up. Like we can cut off his good passing because we don't have to play up on him. He can't use that to its advantage.
And even what we said about Josh Giddey before, Ben is bigger, stronger, has more size than Josh Giddey. And what we said 10 minutes before about Josh, learning how to use his strength and his size and bully people inside. Scotty Barnes is doing this in Toronto at the moment in his second year, figuring out how to use his body. They're attacking, drawing fouls and taking shots at the basket. Whereas we know the reasons why Ben isn't doing it, but the strict on-court interpretation is that he is a fringe role player, and if he ever wants to get back to all-star status, he has to get over this mental hurdle and start attacking the basket, drawing contact and looking to shoot.
It's pretty crazy to think that, you know, if he was out of contract, I don't know how much longer he's got left on his contract. It might be a little while, but if this was his last year of his contract, there wouldn't be many teams that are going out to sign him. Like, he'd probably end up in China or something.
Well, he's got 3 years left. It's funny. I think it was the Russillo podcast I was listening to last week, and someone was on talking about this exact thing. And if he was a free agent right now, what contract would he get? And they were theorising, and I tend to agree, that he'd get a mid-level exception, 2 years, $20 million.
Yeah, like the DeMarcus Cousins of...
Patty Mills is on $7 million a year.
Yeah.
So it's a Patty Mills level contract for a player that's become Tony Allen, not an all-star.
Yeah.
And so good on Ben for
Tony
getting
Allen.
It's a deep cut, isn't it?
The grind father. Man, I haven't heard that name for a long time. All right, let's go to... I've got a question from Saxon Souness, as we say on Backchat. He is a Backchat listener.
He sounds like a soccer fan. I like that name.
It could be Souness, but we always say Souness. So sorry, Saxon, if we've butchered it. He is an NBL fan, but he has an NBA question for us. It says, "Hey lads, just wondering what you think... who you think could win in a USA versus the world current 5v5 in a game?" So the world would have, which I probably agree in all these, Luka, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic. Very good starting five there. USA would probably have Curry, Mitchell, Tatum, KD, and AD. I'm not sure those would be the 5. They're probably pretty close to that, but... I would have to say, I'll keep reading. It's very interesting to think how they'd match up, as the world would have a huge size advantage. It could probably run their entire offensive through Giannis and Embiid. But on the other side, KD's being guarded by Embiid. My theory is the game would never end, as KD would trade pull-up twos with Embiid post-up scores, which is true. If it was like a regular game, obviously it would have to end at some point, but it might be like a 72-68 final. The world surely have this, right?
Again, I think we spoke about this last week as well, where the last 4 MVPs haven't been Americans. And this would be a much better format for All-Star Weekend than the captain's picks things they're doing at the moment. All-Star Weekend is low-key one of the most boring weekends in the NBA. They should juice it up a little bit, make it a little bit sexier. There's nothing Americans love more than trying to show how good they are. So could get them a bit angry, and they might actually get invested into the game. Because you're right, there are so many good international players. Even I'm looking through the list here, you've got Siakam, you got Sabonis, even Kristaps Porzingis, who isn't a great player, but who's the American equivalent of a tall 7-foot shooter? You're talking someone like Myers Leonard, who is a much worse player than Kristaps. So we've spoken about this a few times, but the world is starting to take over. And even again, next year we're going to get, I'm going to butcher his name, but Victor from France. I'm going to leave him at that.
Wembanyama.
Oh, good job.
Something like that.
I like that. So the world is taking over. And again, we said this last week, as I keep saying, that Jason Tatum is the best MVP candidate from the American players at the moment.
Yes.
And those names you read out, you take Giannis over him, you take Luka. Embiid, maybe not, but Jokic, you would. So again, the world is very impressive at the moment. Strong. I would like to see this game that was suggested by Saxon, because I think it would be a much better event than the current All-Star setup.
Well, they do, because they used to do rookie sophomore, right? And then that sort of turned into...
They do the world game in the rookie versus sophomore on the Friday night at All-Star.
Yeah, and that's good. That's entertaining. Like, that's probably the most entertaining event out of all of them, apart from the skills challenge, which I enjoy. But that would be good. Maybe they should change it, because they moved to just, they had East versus West, and then they moved to obviously the Pick'em format, which the only good part about that is the actual draft. Yeah, like the ESPN draft special where the players are picking.
To be fair, now they do that. What's it called? That Elam ending where they're chasing the final score in the fourth quarter.
Oh, that yes.
The last 5 minutes of the game is good because the players try. But for the first 3.5 quarters, it's a pickup game.
Yep.
And even again, this year's All-Star Games in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Like, just to let people know, NBA players do not like going to Salt Lake City. So they'll all be booking their planes and their private jets to fly out 5 minutes after the game ends. So anyone that's interested, they're going to be mailing in that All-Star Game hard in about a month's time, because Salt Lake City, great place. People were nice to me, but not somewhere rich, young athletes want to be hanging out.
No, that's right. With the All-Star Game, it's definitely moved to... I remember maybe 10 years ago, a lot of setting each other for good dunks and, letting the lane be open so that people could do that. Now it just feels like it's 40 minutes of players shooting up, pulling up from half court.
Yeah, it's
like long range threes. It's like that's the thing now. Like, just keep pulling up from three.
The cool story I like to tell, our friend Lee Ellis always tells a story from like the early to mid 80s or 90s. I forget when he fell in love with the NBA. It was because he got his hands on this VCR of an All-Star game from that period. Yeah, and he always talks about how insanely competitive the game was. People were setting picks and fighting for loose balls, and that was how he fell in love with the game, because it was a proper game done with All-Star players. And just, again, I know times change and all of the like, but you watch the game now, it's a pickup game. You got Trae Young shooting from half court. Yep. I think we'd all get better enjoyment out of watching people take a horse competition or shoot from half court than walk through what is just a glorified pickup game. But again, we're probably not the target audience, given that we already like the sport.
That's right. Lee Ellis also did claim a bit of glory with the 3-point contest, that players were taking the ball from the rack on the wrong side. So instead of using your usual shooting motion and picking from the right, they were like crossing there. And wasn't it like one year that the player did that, and maybe Curry did that for the first time, and Ellis was like, "That I told everyone that's what they should be doing."
Well, I trust Lee. Lee claims to have beaten Steph Curry in a shooting competition once, so
I trust Lee. Okay, it's NBL time. There's a new award. So we did a chat about new awards in the NBA not too long ago, and look, didn't love most of the renaming of the awards, and there was that new one. What was the new NBA
the clutch player?
Yeah, there we go. So the NBL,
you're a big fan.
The NBL now has the Next Gen Award. So this replaces Rookie of the Year. Is that right? So, look, to be honest, Rookie of the Year is always odd as well, because it wasn't a tight contest at all. It's usually one or two players that were considered for it, and there were certain stipulations and rules around who's considered a rookie in that situation. So now the Next Gen Award goes to a player, or the best player under 25. What's your thoughts on that? Because 25 is quite
old.
Quite old, yeah. That could be a player who's been in the league for 5 years.
Yeah, it's a bit insane, isn't it? There are two things. The first thing is the old Rookie of the Year criteria for the NBL was madness. Yes. Like, international players couldn't win it, but next stars could. Yes. Even if they were international. And all of that came about 3 years ago because the NBL wanted LaMelo Ball to win the award. Yes. So they changed the rules to make sure LaMelo could win that. And it just made what should be a very simple process very convoluted. Yes. And so they're getting rid of those criteria. I agree with that. Great idea. Too hard. Move on. But coming up with this new criteria and calling it a next generation award or whatever term they've used, it just, again, feels a bit too complex. Yeah. Could it not just be the player in their first professional season under the age of whatever age.
Yeah, pick an age.
Pick an age.
Yeah.
Or
that's probably what it should be, because can you win it more than once?
Well, no one knows. Because again, our friends at the NBL are just making this up on the fly.
Because like if there's a player who's 22, right, and just dominates for 2-3 years, he's just going to win the next gen award every time.
Well, even the Froling boys, they've been in the league for years and years.
Yeah.
And I think it was Harry Froling was putting on Twitter about this during the week, that he could win it multiple times, or he's been a professional for years now. I caught up with him when he was in college 6 years ago in the US.
Yeah, right.
And he's eligible to win this award now, which, again, call it what you will. It's the only NBL mechanism for awarding young players. So, again, I get why the NBL do things. They want attention, they want clicks, they want to point to all the stuff they've got going on. Totally agree with that. And who knows? The fact that we're talking about it probably is proving that they've achieved what they want. But again, for mine, they're just making something that should be pretty simple and pretty benign overly complex, because under the old award rules, Brady Manek wasn't eligible to win the award this year. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't, but he wasn't eligible. But now he is under this new one. So is that because they want to give it to the newest American, or they want more attention, or I don't know what.
I remember asking the NBL about LaMelo winning, because the award, it just said that they couldn't win it if they had been paid professionally in a league elsewhere before. And LaMelo won it. And I wrote them a message, and I said, hey, LaMelo just played in Lithuania last season and got paid to play. How is it possible that he's won? And they never responded. And I asked a few times, and they just sort of bended the rules because they wanted LaMelo to win, because it was good optics for the league. So, look, I don't know. It's I
think they'd make it too hard. You could even just split the baby and have two, right? Have best rookie, best professional season, and keep the same award you've got now and do both.
Yeah.
But don't conflate both of them with the same thing. And
that's
again,
right.
It should be pretty simple.
Should be simple. You went to the open air game at the Perth Wildcats. At RAC Arena. It was Perth Wildcats versus Adelaide. Was it Adelaide?
It was the 36ers.
Adelaide 36ers, yes. How was that? Because I saw some photos and it looked amazing, but you were actually there. Tell us what it was
very cool. I'm not normally one for gimmicks, but this was a great night, and it was the busiest I've seen RAC Arena since I got back to Perth almost 4 years ago now. So they pulled a massive crowd, obviously helps the Wildcats, shot very well and put on a good show. But it was just a great initiative, and it's something different. Again, we spoke about this last week, how us here in Perth, we can be quite resistant to change and don't like new things.
Yes.
But I thought it was a great idea. And I'm just thinking through this at the moment. I think the Wildcats really should try to make this an annual event. They should pick a night, whether it's New Year's Eve or Boxing Day, Christmas Day, Valentine's Day, whatever day it is. They should pick a day and just make this a tradition, because they got a full crowd. And there was just, again, it was new, so I think people were more excited than they would be otherwise, but it was a full crowd, and it was just a great reason to get people to the basketball, which we both know the Wildcats have been struggling this year. Their crowd attendance is down.
Yes.
So for the sake of getting more people through the door and putting on a good show, there aren't many downsides to having this event. So again, it was a great night, and I would encourage our Wildcats friends to be doing this every year.
For sure. It was the I'm just checking to make sure I've got the name right. Is it the Catalini Cup?
It is, yes.
And so obviously it's just the winner of that game wins the cup, and they retain it.
Because you saw Catalini and Paul Rogers, you could see them walking down by the court before the game. Just two massive.
Yes.
Man, I've actually got a pretty crazy Paul Rogers story from my childhood, but he came to a Kalgoorlie one night and dunked on the rim. Almost broke the entire arena because the ring didn't stop shaking for 5 minutes.
That's good. I love that. There you go. I remember once when I was working at the Wildcats, there was the Catalini Cup, and I think it wasn't till after the game that they realised they forgot about it. They didn't even realise it was like, oh gosh, so it was the Catalini Cup, and they didn't. I don't think they awarded it, or they awarded it very last minute.
It must be hard, right? Because do they award it after every game during the season?
Yeah, that's right. And I think
they've got to do it 3 or 4 times a year.
I think Adelaide had it, and they didn't bring it over or something. Like they forgot that they even had the trophy, so it was just an awkward.
Paul Rogers and Catalini are living large, right? No matter where they are, they get 3 vacations a year to Perth or
Adelaide. Right. Definitely. Where did Cairns come from? It shows that I do follow the NBL from a distance. I'm not like watching every game and following the league, but all of a sudden they've just locked in the top 2 spot alongside the Sydney Kings. I just did not see that coming a month ago.
No, they've played very well, and again, I'm probably a bit of a skeptic because with the NBL this year, I think there's the Sydney Kings,
yes,
and then there's everyone else. The thing that Cairns have done very well is they've won games that they should win.
Yes.
Again, we contrast this with the Wildcats all the time, losing twice to Brisbane. Cairns have been winning those games this year. So you're right, they're probably going to get second spot now, which gives them a spot into the semi-finals and the best of 3 series round.
Yes.
But I think whoever finishes third or gets that third seed is going to be licking their chops, because for mine, I don't see much difference between Cairns in second and Melbourne United in sixth. To be frank, I think Melbourne is playing the best basketball of anyone at the moment.
Yeah, right.
Not named Sydney. And they're down in sixth spot. So, again, they have kind of come from nowhere. They don't really get much attention. But for mine, I think Sydney's going to walk into the grand final series and Cairns will have home court trying to get through that semi. But it's anyone's game, and whoever finishes in third is going to enjoy going up to Cairns, I think, because they're a slightly better version of the Wildcats in that they shoot a lot of threes, they play good offense. Their defense is much more solid than our friends in Perth, but they're by far an invincible team, and they are a team that, might make me look foolish in a month's time, but they've had a very good regular season.
Funny you should say about a better-looking version of the Wildcats, considering Adam Ford is now the coach and had spent a lot of time learning under Trevor Gleeson and at the Perth Wildcats. Always thought he would be a good... because he was coach at the Sydney Kings for a bit, and then that sort of didn't work out. And then when Perth was looking for a coach, I thought, I wonder if Fordy will be back. But obviously that ship has sailed, and now he's doing very well at Cairns. He's probably stoked that he's not coaching the Perth
He must have
Wildcats.
the most street cred with every coach in the league, doesn't he? Because I laugh every time I see him with his sleeveless top and he's got his sleeve tattoos, and you see him coaching on the sideline. Yes. My first thought he's a bodyguard and an enforcer.
Yep.
And then you have to realise, oh shit,
yeah.
He's the head coach of this team and he's doing very well.
Yeah, that's very good. All right, let's go one more thing before we... I have got a question, and I was going to save this for Greg, who isn't here, but I'm going to throw this at you. I don't think we were able to cover it last week and when we got the question through. So Brody wants to hear our thoughts on how the NBL is trying to sort of reach out into the Asian market. So it says, I'd be keen to find out stance on international teams which have previously failed in Singapore. There was the Singapore Slingers, right? I think it was. Yeah. Or joining a comp like the Southeast Asia Super League, where Gorge is currently coaching. What do you think of that? Because there's some questions that I will ask for Greg another time around the Players Association and if they think they'd be on board. I don't think you were a part of the Players Association at the NBL.
I haven't quite got the promotion yet.
But do you think that there is sort of potential for that sort of thing?
Yeah, look, I'm a massive soccer fan. Shout out to Leeds United. So I think the European soccer model is what to follow here, because I don't think you want teams in Singapore or Manila playing in your regional leagues, because that's so much travel going back and forth.
Yes.
So I think with the NBL itself, keeping that within Australia and New Zealand is the way to go. But I love the idea of a Champions League style tournament where you've got the best 2 or 3 teams from Australia playing in group games against the teams from Japan, from Manila, from China, the whole lot of it.
Yep.
Because you talk about the Players Association, and I get the reservations around travel, but if you can make it commercially work, then look at, again, European soccer, that the Champions League drives more revenue than the Premier League.
Yes.
So if you're in the Champions League, you're making tens of millions of dollars, which again, the money's not going to match up, but the same theory could apply, because if you can get a league set up with those Asian teams, get some TV right, sell them off to a massive Southeast Asian market, then I think there's something there. So I like the idea. I do think, as I said, you're going to have to get the dollars to line up to get the Players Association on side, because the Basketball Players Association in Australia is quite strict and quite rigid with a lot of things. But I would love to see this. It would be much more entertaining than seeing just random games on a weeknight. You could actually have a league and a fixture where you got the NBL on the weekends, and midweek games can be the Champions League games.
Yep.
And that would be great to see.
Huge.
What do you think?
Happened to that? Yeah, no, I like that actually. It is, I guess the tricky thing, I don't know really how it works with the European League. I guess travel maybe is easier, but because when they have like a 2-week break and then they play Champions League games or something?
So they play league games every weekend, and they got the Champions League games on a Wednesday night.
Right.
But you're hitting at a good point. The travel is taken care of private jets, because we're talking 9-10 figure businesses. Well, we've still got NBL players flying commercial at the moment, so
that's right.
They would need to fix that, and it's going to come back to getting the money to make that work.
For sure. The other thing I was just thinking about is the mid-season tournament. Is that still a thing?
The NBA is going to crank it up in the NBL.
Yeah, didn't the Perth Wildcats win some mid-season tournament like 2 seasons ago?
I think they experimented with it, but that's completely slipped my brain. That might have happened when I was in
I'm going to just quickly check, because I remember the Wildcats won it, and it was like maybe. You know what? Someone can write into us if I've maybe I dreamt it, but I swear there was this weird sort of.
You're just merging all those championships you won at the Wildcats together into a fever dream.
One championship, didn't get a ring. That's okay. That's fine.
Well, remember, John really said if they win a chip this year, you're getting his chip. So we need to make sure that happens.
He did say that. I got to remember that. Instagram, where you can get in contact with us, is backchat_basketball, and you can email us. Ben, you could even email me if you want.
I might send in some listener questions from my alias next week.
Please, hello at backchatpodcast.com.au. We do like answering questions, so please send them through. There's lots of NBL, lots of NBA coming up, which we'll continue to talk about next week. Otherwise, Ben, any final thoughts for people as you continue to pack up and move to Melbourne?
No, I'll take all thoughts and prayers as I try to pack up my place and survive. But I'll be with you next week in Perth for one last hurrah before I go to Melbourne in economy class, not first class.
Shame.